Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And it's time to take on Boss Battle 1 of Tempest Heroes Jubilee with the Festive Memories team. Thankfully, they didn't pull a fast one on us and make it like a one-team boss battle and then a totally separate team boss battle. This is all just the Festive Memories team. There's no Octagram Demon Lord half battle in here. There's no Divine General half battle in here. It's just Festive Memories, which is nice, but also not nice because it requires you to have the Festive Memories team. So, Boss Battle 1 is the AoE stage. You're fighting 3 enemies. They do a couple of things that make your life a little bit difficult. Starting off, your turn 1 hand is greens, so Ritas or Maribel if you have her, or any orb changer that can handle the greens. But looking at Shuna, she gives them Earth Attack and all AoE attack. And then on 2 different turns, turn 3 and turn 6, she converts your entire hand to oranges. Regardless of what you get, they're all going to be oranges, which means that they would like you to have Momiji to deal with that. Ranga alt gauge for the allies lowers your crit damage and your synergy power by a lot. So really don't want to crit, really don't want a synergy. And it's not like this, they've sealed our chance to do it, so we could still try and hit a 2%, or we could try and seal their resistance with, like, Fire Millum or something. No, they're debuffing you, which means you really don't want to do this unless you have a way to get around it, and even then, it's kind of rough. And then Shinsha, she nerfs greens and oranges, so good luck using those. But first team is going to be the meta. These are not great scores, I just don't have a lot of time this weekend to do it, unfortunately, so I'll give you some options. Just know that these are not like the best teams or the best runs that I've ever seen. So let's jump in. Just as a heads up, most people aren't going to have the Konosuba team, but it is another team that can do extra damage against Earth. It is a blue stacking team, so if you have the Konosuba team, by chance, you could use something that looks like this, where Blanc, Aqua, Kazuma, the Christmas Shizu, because she's on Adventurer, so she gets the extra damage buff, and she's AoE physical, and then Megamine. That is an option if you have it available, but I'm assuming most people at this point don't, because it was so long ago. And then, I don't show it, but Tempest Elite is another team that gets extra damage against Earth. It's a burst team, though, so by turn 8, you're not really benefiting a lot from Trainee's passive ability, and it's more burst focused than anything else, but it is another team that can give you extra damage against Earth. I don't use either of these, but just know that they could be options for you, or some kind of bastardized version of whatever these two teams are. You can attempt to make it work if you have them available. Alright, the first team is going to be the meta minus Ritas, because we're not going to bring her. We're going to bring Primal Demon Diablo, who has that 100% physical buff for Violet. It's not going to hit anybody else. It's only going to hit Violet. That's fine. We just need to make her do as much damage as possible. We've got Albus, we've got Momiji, Maribel, we've got Skill Fused, Fire Christmas Shizu. So she's got the fire buff, she's got the extra pierce power, and the AoE debuff. That's going to be a really big thing in your damage. If she's not skill fused, it won't be as effective, but you can still use her. It also only lasts for 2 turns instead of 3, so you do have to keep that in mind. But the idea is that you're trying to get an EX ult with Violet and an AoE ult with Shizu, and then whatever else you can get from either Momiji or Maribel along the way. So, turn 1, we're going to use Diablo's Orb Change because it actually gives a gauge increase, which allows us to potentially get a double stack of Albus on turn 2, depending on your support traits. I don't remember who I had underneath them. I might have had different units to get extra power. Let's find out really quickly. We're going to use the free stack of the fire attack for Violet, and then we'll send it. And then if we get a double stack of Albus, then we know that we're using Protection Gauge underneath both of them. And if we're not, then oh well. What do we get? We do. Okay, so we're using Protection Gauge. So this allows us. This hand, though, not great if you're trying to orb change, but I'm just going to send 5 Violet Orbs and just try and rush her ult as quickly as possible. A lot of these orbs are nerfed, but The charm I'm using is the alt gauge on blue charm. probably better off using the Alt Rush ability, but there's the full convert right there that Shuna does, so it wants you to have Maribel, or not Maribel, Momiji, or some unit that can convert oranges like Commander Shizu, or Prosper Lumi, can convert the entire hand. We do bring her on a different team, but it's pretty straightforward. As long as you can get the EX alt with Violet relatively quickly, then you could start stacking some buffs, because you only have 150 points. Diablo, if you're trying to use his buff, costs 80, which really cuts into your point capacity. This is a really good hand, though. Look at that. We have a 6-hand of Violet, and we can convert pretty much all of it into blue orbs. So this is how I got around not having the Alt Rush charm. I just got a literal crap ton of Violet orbs. But also, what you need to keep in mind is that you have 3 enemies hitting you, and you're trying to maintain barriers for Maribel to yoink to give you that extra weakness strike. So what I do is I kind of just keep stacking barriers on Violet and then sending her away. That way she can retain 5, 6 barriers by the end of the fight, and we don't need to worry about everybody having like 3 or 4 barriers across the board. One character can have like 8, and then you're not really in a pinch. But here, we have the EX ult, so we're going to use the fire buff and hold on to it. We're not going to benefit from the fire resistance down from Shizu, so if that skill isn't fused, it's not really a big deal, because we're not going to be able to take advantage of that resistance down part. But we need to build enough points back up to be able to use Diablo next turn. And also, I believe next turn is another full convert to oranges. So we bring Diablo up front, we make sure that Violet is in the back, we send these orbs, we get max points again, and then Shizu's got an ult, the guard is unfortunate, but there's that, there's the full convert. So we only need to use really 3 skills here if you wanted to. One of those would be the alt swap, and then the full orb change with Violet, or sorry, Momiji, and then the physical buff with Diablo. That's the most important part. So let's, I should probably swap Violet for Shizu, realistically, but I don't. So, oh well. So we're going to use the AoE debuff from Shizu, the physical buff, the alt swap, so now it's got a bunch of blues, and we have just enough points. Yeah, I misplayed there. I should have swapped Violet in for Shizu. So if you're trying to replicate this team, don't do that. Don't do what I did. And now we're ready to go. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a super powerful ult, or actually an ult with Shizu at all, because she has to go away. Because I need to have Momiji, Maribel, and Violet up front. Or at least a small combination of that for the nuke turn. But turn 2, I could send her away now, but she... what are we doing here? I don't actually know what we're doing here. Alright, so we're going to alt swap probably. And then I guess we'll bring Maribel up front for Violet. Okay, so one more stack. So now we have 2, 1, 2, and then Maribel has how many stacks? She's got to have a lot. We're going to get another stack with her own skill. But, I mean, we need to send Violet away here. So I don't know what I'm holding on to. Alright, there we go. So we swapped, we used the orb change. 3, 4, 3 right there. And we're going to get probably a double stack of Albus next turn, or at least one. So, yeah, I think I'm trying to do math here. Okay, so we're going to send the blues. And that is very close. It should get us a double stack with the trait kicking in from the support underneath Shizu. And we're going to have... yep, there we go. So we'll bring Violet in for Shizu, because that's what we have to do. Unfortunately, we're not going to have her ult, which is a pretty big factor in me missing some damage here. So also really look for that. So there's the Violet skill, gives us the 150 skill points, something like that, 120. And then we'll got to use everything else. 2 more stacks means that we have enough, so 3, 5, and 2. That is exactly 10, so we can use the full buff from Maribel, and then we're going to nuke here. 1 with Maribel, 1 with Violet, and then we'll send these orbs because we got no Violet orbs. 800, somewhere around there. And then, yeah, 53 million or something across the board. And then that's currently my highest score right there without having the Shizu ult, and I haven't gone back to redo it because I have other things I need to do. But there's a million right there. If you don't have the team, like you don't have Diablo, you could bring Fount of Wisdom Rimuru or Tempest Elite Benimaru. They both have physical buffs. And technically Benimaru and Rimuru would also be able to buff Shizu. Might be an option for you if you're not confident. Alright. You knew it was coming. Next team is Ogre's Pride. Also gives extra damage against Earth enemies. We have a very strong AoE nuker and a single target nuker. We're going not full power with this team actually, because instead of bringing Violet to give Momiji the magic buff, we're bringing Prosper Lumi, who can orb change those two hands that are full oranges, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to, even if we had Violet. So we're sacrificing the 100% magic buff for Momiji for consistency on orbs. And that's probably, I tried to use Violet, it wasn't going very well, so I just wanted to get this video out, so we put Prosper Lumi in. We're also, again, running the alt gauge on Blue Charm, so we can try and rush the alts as quickly as possible for Momiji and Shuna. We also have the Enamor effect from Elmisia, who's going to give us 15 to 30% extra alt gauge for free, depending on how lucky you are with points. And then Soe is going to give the 100% synergy power. So the enemies put an 80% nerf on you, but we're going to have plus 20 on that if you can max out Soe's skill. And then we're going to have the 60% down from Momiji. So we're going to benefit off the synergy. It's just not nearly as much as it normally would if we were playing like the actual Ogre's Pride meta Jubilee. Alright, turn 1, we're going to use Soe, because he can convert any 2 orbs to blue, which we have 2 orbs that are not blue. Boom. And then, ideally, you're looking for alts with Momiji, Shuna, and Soe. Soe and Momiji being AoEs. But we're not super weak point, because they're more weak to physical, so we're losing that a little bit. We're not getting, like the EX Unbound extra stats after turn 6 or something like that. And we're just not going to do as much damage. Like, you would think this team would do a lot. It's actually not as effective as you would like it to be compared to the Festive Memories team. But it is just a traditional stacking team, and you're not really worried about defense, you're just worried about points. And so that makes this team pretty easy to run. So on this turn, where we got the conversion back to all oranges, we don't need to worry about that, because we can just alt swap with Shuna, and then full orb change for fire and earth orbs with Prosper Lumi. And then we'll actually bring Soe in to get a little bit of alt gauge for him, because we're looking good on Momiji already, and it's only 2 turns in. So we'll bring Elmisia in, we'll use her Enamor effect, so that's 15% alt gauge at the end of the turn, and then we'll send this, and boom, awesome, and that's pretty much it. Like, you're gonna have enough points by the nuke turn to use everything. You don't need to hold any buffs. If you had brought Violet instead of Lumi, you would need to hold the Violet buff on Momiji. But we don't have to do that because we have enough points. So this is just a traditional blue stacking team, and I don't really think we need to sit here for the next 5 turns to really watch that. Just know that you're a blue stacking team, and you need blue orbs, and you need to get ults for everybody. So let's jump ahead to the final turn right here, and we have an EX ult for both Momiji and Shuna, and we have an EX ult for Soe in the back. And now we have enough points to full buff here. So we'll do the Elmisia buff, we'll send her away, we'll bring Soe in, 1, 2, 3, boom. We have to use those first to ensure that we've used the 300 points, so that now Soe has the full 100% synergy power. We have 2 more stacks of Benimaru, who's now giving us the 100% pierce power, plus another 20% ult damage. And we've got an okay hand, so we've gotten 10 stacks. So Soe, Momiji, Shuna, Momiji. So Soe does 2.2 million across the board. It's not super great. And then Momiji does 8.5, somewhere around there, across the board. Sorry, it was really, really fast. Momiji, yeah, 8.5, 8.6 over there. And then Shuna on her single target ult does 13 million. So 46 million right there, plus these 2 orbs. Not nearly as good as the Festive Memories team, shockingly. But it is a team that can get you, like, an okay score. Alright, the next team I have for you is a stacking blue team, but with non-EX nukers. So we've got Commander Renard stacking alt resistance down and weakness strike. We've got Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, Summer Shizu, Guy, and then the old Christmas units, Shizu and Velzard. Now, my Velzard is skill fused, but if she wasn't, she'd be giving herself attack and a lot lower alt buff, which we could then cover with Guy, because he's going to give everybody 80%, and then Rimuru would give the physical buff, which, if she's not skill-fused, Velzard doesn't have. If she is skill-fused, then you're already getting physical attack, and you're getting an 80% alt, or 100% alt damage, which is higher than what Guy's doing. Also, you can't crit, so you have to make sure that these two characters are in the back when you're ready to ult, because you don't want to give them crit. So you'd have to have Guy, Shizu, and Rimuru up front on the nuke turn, but it can work for you, can being the keyword. So turn 1, we can use Guy to orb change. If Rimuru is skill fused, you could also use him, because his skill fusion allows him to change any 2 orbs, just like Soe did. But we're going to assume that he's not for most of the fight. There are some points where I needed him skill fused and it works out for me, so just know you're going to play around that. But we also have Summer Shizu here, who's going to be our only alt swapper, which isn't really a big deal, because these are not characters that need EX alts. They don't need to be up front for very long. They just need to get an alt, and then they need to go fuck off. And because we're not running a team full of 80-point skills, we're going to have enough on the nuke turn to use everything. So there's not really any downside to just keeping them in the back, apart from passive damage, because you're sending orbs of not fire characters. But here, full hand of orange, okay, nothing we can do about that. There's no point in trying to orb change here and wasting points, so we're just going to swap out. We're going to get more stacks of weakness strike on our fire characters, and we're just going to burn this turn out. We're going to burn both orange turns out. So that's how you get around that, is just by not getting around it. Unfortunate, and if you have a unit that can get you around it, then you can. Commander Renard, people are like, why didn't you bring Commander Shizu? Because she's on a different team, and I wanted to use this team with the old units rather than swap them around, just to show people that you can team build with old and new characters together. But here, this is where Rimuru being skill fuse is good, because he normally wouldn't be able to convert that green orb. But let's send the orbs. We get 2 more stacks of Renard, and then we have almost an ult for Velzard, and we have an ult for Shizu. So we can actually use the single ult swap with Guy, use his orb swap or orb change, bring Shizu in, use the single ult swap, and then we're looking good. And we should use the weakness strike skill here as well from Shizu, because it lasts for 2 turns, and it just erases some of the points necessary to use on the nuke turn. But we don't. We're going to use it next turn. We still have quite a few ways to go, so it's not that big of a deal. So here, another full hand of oranges. Alright, yeah, nothing we can do about it. There's no point in doing anything. So 1 more stack of Renard, and then we're going to use the weakness strike buff and send them both away. And then, let's see, what did we do there? Oh, we did the AoE debuff and everything from Christmas Shizu. So now, we're just going to move on to the nuke turn, which looks like this. So, all 3 characters up front. We don't want these Festive Memories characters in the back. We do want them in the back, sorry, because we're going to use the Guy alt buff, and he gives crit to physical allies, which both of them are crit, and both are physical, but we don't want to crit. So we kept him in the back intentionally, used the alt buff early, and then swapped them out. And now we're going to use the fire buff, the physical buff, the personal buff from Velzard, 1 more stack of Renard, and then we're going to go nuke. So we got a full hand because we could even orb steal. This is nice. So Shizu does how much? 560k. Yeah, it's not a lot. Velzard does 660k. Okay. Pierced naturally over here, so we actually did a bit more. All right, we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we did 1 million. So I mean, that's pretty strong right there. And that puts us at around 4.5 million damage. Not great, but it's a very weird combination of old and new. Well, they're mostly old characters. Old and really old. Commander Renard's the newest character on this team, but it's an option you can attempt to use to stack and get some fire characters in there. Alright, and the final team I have for you is a light Shuna team. Stacking Stun, Strike, and Pierce Power. We're not stunning with this team, so you can forego that. I mean, if you want to, you can, but it's an AoE fight, and you can only ever stun one person. So we're going to just base off the stacking Pierce Power, which we're going to activate using Albus. We've, again, brought Guy for the alt buff and the turn 1 orb change. We brought Blanc to be our triple alt swapper and weakness strike. And then we've brought Commander Shizu, who you could definitely put on the other team that we just showed with Commander Renard, and that would work fine. Or you could put her on just any stacking team, and she'll be a halfway decent AoE nuker. And then we've once again brought Christmas Shizu. So 2 different fire Shizus, a lot of orb changing here, alt swapping power. It's just that the Protector is very, very old. Alright, so turn 1, spoiled for choice. You could use Albus, or you could use Guy. I'd prefer to use Albus because it's dedicated 2, and in case your second turn gives you like 2 greens and an orange, you can just use Guy, and you wouldn't be at a disadvantage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Another just traditional stacking team. Shuna is not even an EX protector, so she's only giving you skill points cap every time you use her instead of passively, which means that you're stacking up skill points slower. 1, because it's every time you use her, and also she's only doing 40 at a time instead of 50 like the other protectors do. Once you get into the late turns, you could actually, I think, potentially have a bit more than normal, but it's not that big of a deal. So orb change and orb change. We have some skill point units here to allow us to use a bit more. So I think I have Idle Shuna underneath Christmas Shizu, so we could have extra points. So on turn 2, we could actually use 2 orb changes and get around some of the RNG. If you don't have that option available, you're just going to have to either keep resetting or just deal with it for a turn until you can make some points back. But here, let's alt swap, and then Shizu's full orb convert takes care of those oranges, just like Momiji does for the Festive Memories team. So, works out fairly well, and now we are just stacking again. With this team, you're wanting to hold a few things here, I believe. You want to hold the weakness strike with Blanc, and you also want to hold... Actually, I don't think you can hold anything else besides the Christmas Shizu buff, the AoE and the Pierce power. So you do have to make sure that you're at a point on like turn 7 where you could safely use those skills, orb change, and send them away, and then make back all your points for turn 8. So here, I mean, just more stacking. This, we are running, again, the alt gauge on blue charm, just trying to get EX alts for Shizu and alt for Christmas Shizu. This works out fairly well. We're almost there. We only have 1 orb, so let's just use Albus, and then we'll bring Blanc in, and we'll alt swap away, and then we'll leave her here so that next turn we could use the buffs and send them to the back. So again, because we're bringing Guy, we want to use his alt buff without giving the Shizu's crit, because that would nerf our damage into the ground. So we want to make sure they're in the back when we use Guy's alt buff, which means they have to be in the back already. So stack, Pierce power, and then alt swap, orb change, and then we need to do the debuff and the weakness strike. So boom, debuff there. Oh, actually we're going to go another turn, aren't we? Okay, well, either way, we still have 1 more turn, so you could either swap them there or you could swap them next turn, as long as you can make it work. That's the important part. But because Christmas Shizu is skill fused, we can use her an extra turn early. She lasts for 3 turns instead of 2. So alt swap here, and then stack, and I think another stack? Yeah, double stack there. And then we'll use the weakness strike before sending the Shizus. So gotta make sure we do it right, though. Gotta make sure we do it right. Here we go. Alright, so weakness strike, boom. Synergy resistance down, doesn't matter because we're not on a synergy-focused team. And then both Shizus go away. Orb change, send it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we are ready to nuke on the final turn. So, actually, pretty good hand right there. and we have an excess of points. Like now we're up to 493, which normally we'd be capped at 450. So in the beginning stages, you're not getting as many points as you would like. By the end of it, you actually have a bit more than normal. So we used the alt buff, gave the front line guaranteed crits. That's fine. As long as the back line doesn't have it, that's what we're looking for. Orb change, so we get a full 6-hand of blues. We got pretty lucky there. And now we're ready to nuke. So 1, 2, 3. So guaranteed pierce resistance down, the physical buff and EX ult damage, which only affects Shizu, and then the fire buff and fire down. And I guess we can use the other Shizu buff to give Albus some extra oomph, but she's going to be critting, so her damage is going to look awful. Christmas Shizu does 746, so more than we did on the last team. And then Albus does a paltry, 45,000 damage. And that's one, not being type advantage, not being a fire character, not being fully buffed, not being weakness strike, and having a crit. And then but Commander Shizu does 2.3 million? Is that what I saw? Come on. Yeah, 2.3 million. So again, she can work. It's not great, but she can definitely work. And if you put her on a different team, that's maybe a bit more tailored to her with a better protector, with Renard, she would look a lot better probably. But those are some options for you to use for Boss Battle 1. Again, please, if you have other teams that you found that work or variations, put it in the comments. Make my life easier. Let other people know what you've used that works. But that's it from me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.